Hello everybody, welcome along to this video. Mr. Johnson teaches how to analyse language. Now this is part of my series of videos, my core skills revision series. Check them out, you've got lots of other things which you'll probably find really useful on there. In the meantime, what I'll say, as is the very bottom of this slide, you'll need to be ready to pause this video to attempt the exercises yourself. Just watching simply won't actually make you any better at this, but this is something I've put together because I see students struggling a lot with this, and this is really a starting point for anyone completely struggling with unpicking language when you're told to analyse something or unpick something. This is a video very much for you. So pay attention, follow along, and there's a little bit for you to try shortly. So in the meantime then, if I can try and click on successfully, there we go. Why does unpicking language matter? Why is it important? I've put there. First bullet point, writers make choices to try and get a response for us. Whenever a writer has written something, they're trying to create something for us to feel. Now, second bullet point says, by unpicking and analyse those choices by those writers, you can show that you understand the effect that they're going for, and that shows a real understanding of writing, a real understanding of language, which is why you are asked to do it in your exams. And the more detailed your understanding is when you're unpicking, the higher the marks that you can earn. So it's really important, partly for your GCSEs, yes, but more than that, it's actually you showing an understanding of writers and what they're trying to achieve. So the phrase I'm going to sort of come back to here really is the one at the top there. Think about putting it under the microscope, and by it I mean the language, the words, the things that you are reading. You are trying to put it under the microscope like that and look at it really closely, really try to understand it in that sort of sense. It was a phrase used, I was in the AQA exam board, and word I'm trying to say is I was an examiner a few years ago, so I was marking exams, and that was a phrase that they talked about in the exam, in the training for us, was actually looking at putting something under the microscope. So as it says on the left there, take a really close look at the language or the methods that the writer has used and put them under the microscope, examine them and try to unpick and see what's going on there. Language would be the words that the writer has chosen. The methods would be, as it says, the methods, so I'm talking similes or metaphors or imagery, repetition. There's a whole range of methods that you could unpick. So let's go a stage further then. How to analyse? Well, I'm going to give you a strategy for it. Now before that, this is an extract on the top of the screen there. It came from an actual language exam a few years ago at the GCSE. And I'm just going to read it. So what you've got here is a teacher who's marking book after book after book, and he feels like it's really boring and all his students have lost their imagination and he's daydreaming back to a better time. So that's the context for this. Mr. Fisher remembered a time, surely not so long ago, when books were golden, when imagination soared, when the world was filled with stories which ran like gazelles and pounced like tigers and exploded like rockets, illuminating minds and hearts. Now the extract goes on for longer than that, but let's imagine that we're going to unpick the language and try and think about what is the writer trying to do, what they're trying to make us feel or understand from that extract. So here is the strategy I would give you of how you would go about analysing an extract like that. And it's a 1, 2, 3. Number 1 is which words leap out at you as the most important. We'll come back to that in a second. Number 2 in a minute is going to be thinking of synonyms for the word that we're choosing. And 3 are any connotations, but we'll unpick these in order. So number 1, look at that extract again. You can even pause this video very briefly and just decide which phrase would you unpick from that one. And in a moment, I'm going to unpick the words that I would have chosen. So I'm going to highlight them in a different colour, just like you should always be highlighting when you're told to read a piece of text. So here are the words that I chose, number 1. So for me, those phrases leapt out, something about them like books being golden, because they can't literally be golden, but that description stands out to me, as it does when he talked about imaginations soared, when the world was filled with stories, is really like real strong imagery, with stories which ran like gazelles, that simile there, pounced like tigers, exploded like rockets. So there's loads of imagery there, of sort of exciting imagery, but also 3 similes in a row. And finally that verb, illuminating minds and hearts. That's all I had to do for a minute though. Imagine those were the words I highlighted. Number 2 then, think of synonyms for the word you are analysing. Now we can't analyse all of that, that's just too much, and you probably will never have time in an exam situation to analyse those many words, or that many words. So I decided that books were golden is the phrase that I'm going to use. I think that really shows something about Mr. Fisher and what he thinks about what it used to be like when he was marking. So let's look at that. Books were golden, and I've highlighted in blue there the word golden, because of the three that I would quote, that word really stands out. So number 2 says, I need to think of some synonyms. Now, synonyms is a word that you probably came across at primary school. You might have forgotten. A synonym is another word which means the same thing. So think about golden. What other words can we come up with which means the same thing? Now, you could try pausing the video here and writing a few down. That would be really good. I'm just going to give you a few seconds to do that if you are going to pause the video before I reveal the words that I came up with. And these are the ones I came up with. So in my head, golden means things like glowing, beautiful, because it's very precious as well, valuable, things that are golden are valuable, they're pretty, it's something that's wonderful, like golden time, for example, and expensive I put there, but I put that one in red because we need to look at that word, books were golden. Well, it doesn't mean when books were expensive. That's sort of a different meaning of it. So just be careful that the words that you are unpicking or coming up with as your synonyms, they actually work for the word in the sentence. So books were golden, meaning books were expensive, doesn't work. But when books were golden, pretty, probably not. Valuable, maybe. Precious, possibly. Beautiful, glowing. Not literally glowing, but maybe they were sort of glowing with good work, if you like. Number 3 are connotations. That's a really good word to try and get into your head and use for your analysis. What connotations are there of this idea, books were golden? Now, I came up with these phrases. It's almost like they are bringing light to him, the books, to Mr. Fisher, when he's marking, or when he used to be marking these books, when they were better. And it's almost like there's something he treasures. If something is very golden, it makes it sound valuable, as I've put already on my synonyms there. So it's almost like the books are something that he treasures. They're really important to him. So if you look at that screen all together now, you could even pause it. It gives you an idea. What I've started to do there is analyse. Now, I haven't actually literally written anything down yet. This is a process which goes on in my head before I start writing my answer. The key bit there really is highlighting the words that I think are important and then choosing one phrase from it that I'm going to analyse. Now, what I've got here is the next extract I'd like you to have a look at, and you really want to pause this in a minute once I've read through it and have a go yourself. The number 1, 2, 3 steps are at the top of the screen there for you to refer back to when you're having a go. The bit in the green box just puts this extract into some context. A group that includes Mr. Eccles, together with their guide Travis, is visiting a prehistoric jungle in order to shoot a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So this is a bit of sci-fi fantasy writing. This one again is taken from an actual GCSE language exam, so it's the sort of difficulty that you might get. This isn't the whole extract. I've chosen the bit that they gave for the question they wanted where students were going to analyse the language. So I'm just going to read through it quickly. Pay attention, because then you can decide which words you would do for number 1 that leap out as most important. So it's describing the Tyrannosaurus Rex. They've just seen it for the first time. It came on great oiled, resilient, striding legs. It towered 30 feet above half of the trees. A great evil god, folding its delicate watchmaker's claws close to its oily reptilian chest. Each lower leg was a piston, 1,000 pounds of white bone sunk in thick ropes of muscle, sheathed over in a gleam of pebbled skin like the armour of a terrible warrior. Each thigh was a ton of meat, ivory and steel mesh, and from out the great breathing cage of the upper body, those 2 delicate arms dangled out front, arms with hands which might pick up and examine men like toys, while the snake neck coiled. And the head itself, a ton of sculptured stone, lifted easily upon the lifted easily upon the sky. Its mouth gaped, exposing a fence of teeth-like daggers. Its eyes rolled, ostrich eggs, empty of all expression save hunger. It closed its mouth in a death grin. Now, there is a lot going on there, and for some students there'd probably be a bit too much, and some of that wouldn't have been completely clear exactly what's being described, but there certainly should be enough there for you to pick out at least maybe 3 things, but quite possibly many more. Depends on your own ability. But I'm going to go quiet now for a few seconds in order to allow you to pause this, and what I want you to do is decide which ones you're going to choose for number 1. Then choose one line and think of some synonyms and any connotations that you can think of to do with it. what it makes you think of. So I'm going to go quiet now and give you a chance to have a go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the bits that I would have highlighted for number 1. It doesn't mean if you've highlighted something different that you're wrong, or if you didn't choose it that you're wrong. Interpretations are different when it comes to English, but these were the lines which really leapt out at me as I was saying. So you've got ones like this idea of it towering above you, a great evil god, making it sound really powerful perhaps, and even towered again makes it sound very intimidating. So these are almost synonyms and connotations that I'm offering you here when I talk about these words. So see if anything I say matches anything you would have said for these lines. I missed some of those lines and went down to like the thick ropes of muscle, making it sound strong and intimidating. Like the armour of a terrible warrior. That sounds like it's really strong and powerful again. This great breathing cage. It's talking about his chest there, but a cage makes it sound really, just like really like dangerous and almost like it's trapped, or maybe we're thinking about the men trapped. It goes on to talk about the arms before the next line I highlighted, which is pick up and examine men like toys. So that's similarly making the men sound really small in comparison to the dinosaur and making it sound really threatening and them sound really vulnerable. The next bits I went down with those final bits. Its mouth gaped open. That sounds really unpleasant, that word. Often things like a wound, a really sort of big cut, can gape open. So that sounds like it's got really sort of connotations to do with injury and really unpleasant connotations. The fence of teeth like daggers is really strong imagery there. Daggers are a word you associate with murder and blood and violence, making the dinosaur again sound really dangerous. And then also it closed its mouth in a death grin. So it's smiling, but the fact is it's called a death grin there. Again, really strong imagery, making that dinosaur sound really, really terrifying and also dangerous. What you would want to do is the synonyms and the connotations which you chose for any of the lines that you chose on that or in that extract. Think about the effect of all of that. And if you just look at the lines that I've highlighted in blue there, it makes the dinosaur sound dangerous, is a straightforward interpretation. It makes it sound threatening. It makes it sound really, really intimidating. These are all synonyms I'm offering up for the word dangerous. So if you think it sounds dangerous, fine. What other words can you think of I'm tired today. Other words which suggest dangerous, which mean the same thing. So dangerous, intimidating, violent, threatening. The more synonyms you can offer up, the better when it comes to your analysis. Now what I'm going to do is just summarise this video. A reminder that 1, 2, 3 is something that if you can practice that again and again with extracts, then you'll find that you get stronger and stronger at it. The next stage, of course, is then actually starting to write about those in a paragraph or in your work. But if you use either of those 2 phrases, particularly the first one that I've got down at the bottom there in bold, that will really help you. So the word, for example, the last extract, the daggers of his teeth, the word daggers suggest that the dinosaur is, and then if you go on to say some of those synonyms and connotations you came up with, you'll start getting some really good marks. It all comes through practice. You'll get better at it the more you do it, but hopefully you might have found this video some use, particularly if you watched it all the way to the end and because you were struggling with analysis. I hope this has given you a really solid place of how to begin. Ask your English teacher, of course, ever if you have any questions about this sort of thing, because they will happily help you. And in the meantime, don't forget to check out some of the other videos on my channel. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Good night and goodbye.